Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. And on today's video I wanted to talk about The Last of Us Season 2. Now I did make a video talking about the first two episodes of The Last of Us and giving my thoughts and opinions on the show so far, but now that there are more episodes out and there are more things that have, come out, and there have been more scenes and different stuff like that, I wanted to just talk about, is this season, or is season 2 of The Last of Us working, or is it like good, or is it as good as the first season? Because I enjoyed the first season of The Last of Us TV show. Was it as good as the game? No. And I feel like that's pretty obvious. I feel like a lot of people would agree with me that the show is not on par with the game. Obviously the game came first, so there is going to be an inherent bias towards the game. But the first season I thought was good. I enjoyed it. As an adaptation, I thought it did a good job of adapting the characters, adapting the world, the infected and everything like that, and the story. I thought it did a good job of that. I think my only problem for the first season is that there were scenes where they would recreate parts from the game, from the show, and sometimes it wouldn't hit as hard, or it wasn't as it wasn't as good as they did it in the game. And like I said, there is an inherent bias there. Yes, the game came first, so you are gonna have more of a connection towards that than maybe the show, obviously. And so that was kind of, for me, that was more of a nitpick than anything else. But now going into this season, and especially The Last of Us Part 2 as a game, it's I feel like it's a lot harder to adapt something like that, just because of the way that game is structured, that you play with Ellie, and then, or you play with Ellie for half of the game, and then you play as Abby for half of the game, and there's a lot of flashbacks back and forth and stuff like that. So I feel like the way that the game is, and it's a very interactive game. Like, you're supposed to be playing as these characters, getting to know these characters, as you play as them. It's a very interactive thing, obviously, when you're playing as the character yourself. But so going into the second season of The Last of Us, I did feel like there were gonna be, I guess, obstacles that they were gonna have to overcome in order for this to, I guess, for them to be able to successfully adapt the game into the show. And there have been a lot of criticisms that I've seen for this show, and I wanted to point out some of the criticisms that I've noticed about the show, and some of them was particularly one of them that it's about one of the actresses in the show, and people. I feel like there is some people who have actual constructive criticism about the way that this actress is portrayed, or is, I guess, yeah. Well, it's more about how she looks in the show rather than her actual performance in the show. But I have seen just a lot of people just be a-holes, about it, and people are making jokes about it. But no, I am talking about Bella Ramsey as Ellie. It's so interesting because the first season, I thought Bella Ramsey did a good job of portraying Ellie in the show, even though she didn't necessarily look like Ellie. That didn't really matter to me, because as long as your performance is good, then that's really all that matters at the end of the day. But and even before this season came out, in my mind, and sometimes I would talk about it, I would say, okay, Bella Ramsey can obviously play a good season 1 Ellie, but can she play a good season 2 Ellie? Because those are two very different beasts of different, I feel like characters. Like season 1 Ellie is a lot more, childlike, and she's a lot more innocent and more naive about the world and everything like that, and she's very jokey, and she's very, and stuff like that. And so in Bella Ramsey, just from the way she looks more like a kid. Like she looks more like a teenager or a kid than she does, anything, else, I feel like. But so coming into season 2, with Bella Ramsey, I kind of had my doubts a little bit, because she doesn't look like, Ellie from the second season, like, or from the second, from like the part 2, or Last of Us Part 2, because there is a noticeable difference between how Ellie from the first game looks and how Ellie from the second game looks. Ellie from the second game looks way more mature. She looks way more, just more adult looking, and that's in part due to, like, I feel like she has to look like that in order to give off a sort of, like, I guess what's the word I'm looking for, I don't know what a certain maturity, I guess in the character, in a certain growth in the character. But Bella Ramsey, from season 1 to season 2, she looks the same. Like, she doesn't look any, different or older. And so that's kind of one of the problems that you run into with something like this. And so far, the other episodes that I've seen because after, obviously, after episode 2, that's when Joel dies. And then after that, it mainly just focuses on Dina and Ellie, and them in Seattle, and them kind of trying to track down Abby. And obviously you have the Seraphites, and you have the WLF with Isaac and everyone else. And so those episodes have been, I don't know, I don't want to say hit or miss. I don't want to say that. They've been fine. Like, there's no episode, well, maybe from episode 6, the most recent episode that just came out, that I really enjoyed. But all the episodes after episode 2, in my opinion, have been kind of like, okay, where are we going with this? Not that necessarily where are we going with this, because we know what, the end game is, obviously Ellie trying to find Abby, but it doesn't feel. And there are some scenes with Ellie that I actually still enjoy. There's the scene with Ellie playing the guitar and Dina listening to Ellie play the guitar. I thought that scene was really good. The stuff with Isaac, I thought Jeffrey Wright, who played, I'm pretty sure he played Isaac in the game as well. He also plays Isaac in the show. I thought the parts with him and, like, the Seraphites, or him torturing the Seraphite, I thought those were, like, well acted scenes, and everything like that. And so the problem is not necessarily the performances, in my opinion. It's just really, like, well, maybe it is a little bit, but I don't know. Especially when you were trying to adapt The Last of Us Part 2, and The Last of Us Part 2 is really just, the first half at least, is Ellie just going on this murderous, like, rampage, and she has, like, tunnel vision, and she's trying to get to Abby, and she doesn't care, like, what's in her way or what gets in her way. She's like, that's her mindset in that moment, or in that first half of that game. And I feel like the second season, like, there are moments when, like, Ellie is, like, by herself, and she kind of becomes, like, a different. She becomes way more, because I am going to talk about spoilers. So if you have not played the game, watch the show, then get the freak out of here. No, but because the scene with Nora in her, I thought was good, but like I said, it didn't feel as good as the game, or as strong as the game. There's just, like, a certain, like, it just, I don't know, maybe acting wise, because, you know, when I looked at like a side-by-side comparison of those two scenes with Nora and with, you know, Ellie, you know, torturing Nora, between those two scenes, I just thought that the game did a better job of portraying how it felt in that moment for Ellie to do that to that character.
Where's Abby? No. Where is she? No. Where is she? Where is she? Where's Abby?
I'm fucking dead anyway. Why would I tell you anything?
Because I can make it quick. Or I can make it so much worse.
I'm not giving up, my friend.
And obviously the show tries to do it in, not, I don't know, it's not that it doesn't necessarily work. I just feel like there's a certain, because like I said, there is a certain interactivity that you have with the game that you can't get with the show. And so when you're in that scene with Ellie and Nora in the game, at least, when Ellie starts to, you know, hit Nora with a pipe, you are actively participating in hitting square and also doing it as well. So there is sort of like a connection between you and the character in that moment, but in the show you don't really get that, I guess. But, you know, that's like one of the things that games can obviously do better than like, you know, a TV show can or a movie can. It is very interesting though, because, you know, obviously the people who haven't played the game, or I do feel like if you have played the game, you are gonna be more prone to like comparing, you know, different scenes with the game, and you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, they didn't do that in the game though, so like what the freak, like, or they didn't do what the, you know, what they did in the game versus what they did in the show. So there's gonna be moments like that where you are comparing, and maybe I necessarily shouldn't do that. Maybe I should just, you know, leave it as its own thing. But like, I feel like it is kind of hard when like you've actively played the game. But like, it is interesting seeing that, like, you know, for people who haven't played the game and this is their first interaction with The Last of Us, I don't know if people who haven't played the game are. I feel like if people who haven't played the game are still enjoying the show, I feel like. And I do feel like people who haven't played the game and who have watched the show for the first time, they're probably gonna play the game now that they've seen the show and everything like that. And I have heard of, you know, people who have watched the show and have never actually played the game. You know, they decide to play the game just to see, you know, what the game is like and stuff like that. So hearing stuff like that is also pretty cool as well. But talking about episode 6, or the recent episode that came out, I actually thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty good. It's a flashback scene, and we get to see more of Ellie and Joel's kind of like, you know, I guess, kind of like, when they're in Jackson and like Ellie is like growing up and she's getting older, and the episode has moments where, like, you know, she's it's her birthday and Joel's like, you know, making a cake for her and like everything like that. And then you have the scene with them going to the museum and like the different, and they got like the spaceship part and everything like that. And so I thought those parts were done well. And obviously there was at the beginning of the episode is actually something we've never seen in the game that they did in the show. We got to see Joel and I guess Tommy a little bit more of their, I guess, backstory and how they grew up and everything like that. And we get to see Joel's dad, which is played by I can't remember the guy's name, but I'm pretty sure he's in the new Intergalactic game too, and I know he's in Hawkeye too, but I know he's from like another show, but like I can't remember what the show is called or anything like that. But we get to see Joel, you know, as a teenager, and we get to see, you know, his father, and kind of just like this, we kind of get to figure out why Joel is the way that he is and why he's so protective over, you know, people, and like he's willing to do anything to protect his family. And I thought that scene was pretty good because it ties into the last scene in the episode with Joel and Ellie, because obviously at that point, by the end of the episode, Ellie knows that Joel obviously killed a bunch of fireflies and like took her away from that, and so we get to see the scene that originally in the game was like one of the last scenes that we got in the game. This is actually a little bit earlier on in the show. We get this scene between Ellie and Joel on like the porch, and them talking about, you know, how Ellie felt like Joel stole away, you know, that moment from her, or that moment from her, like her feeling like her life would have mattered, and Joel obviously saying, you know, if I had a second chance, I would have done it all over again and stuff like that. And so I thought that scene was pretty good, but it ties in well to the first scene, because in the first scene, Joel's dad is like, because I don't know, I guess Joel's dad is kind of like abusive, and he like hits his kids and stuff like that, but I guess he does it but there is a line where he says, I hope you do better than I did. And then in the last scene in this episode with Ellie and Joel, obviously Joel is talking about how like the things that he did to protect Ellie, and he says the same line. He says, I just hope that you do better than I did. So I thought that tie-in between those two scenes was really nice and really cool to see. But overall, I think there's actually only one more episode left. There's I think like 7 episodes in total, and so it's gonna be really interesting to see how they wrap up this season. Is it gonna end with Abby finding Ellie in the theater? Like I'm really interested to see how this season is gonna end. We know the next season is probably gonna be way more Abby focused than this season. But yeah, man, so far, is The Last of Us Season 2 working for me? I would say yes and no. There are some parts where I'm still kind of like, okay, this is kind of not working for me, with like the Ellie parts and stuff like that. And there are some scenes with like episode 6 where, like, you know, they got the flashback scenes, we got the scenes with you know, Joel and like his dad and stuff like that, and I thought those scenes were pretty good. I think the scenes with the infected are really good, and from everything we've seen, from like the stalkers to like the regular infected to you know, everything, I thought, you know, that's pretty cool. So yeah, man, I would say in parts it works, but in other parts it's not as strong. But you know, we're just gonna have to see what the final episode is going to be like. So yeah, man, leave down in the comment section below what you think of this new season of The Last of Us. Are you liking it? Are you not liking it? Let me know the things that you don't like about it and things you do like about it in the comments down below. And I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.